This bone-chilling love story unfolds at midnight and will haunt you forever. In the heart of the quaint little town of Whitley, shadows danced on the walls as an eerie chill gripped the air. The clock struck midnight, and an unsettling stillness fell over the streets. People whispered of a cursed couple who had vanished on the eve of their wedding, leaving only a haunting melody that echoed through the night. Local legends claimed that their spirits roamed the earth, bound by unfulfilled love. Every full moon, whispers of their tragic fate filled the air, sending shivers down the spines of even the bravest souls. Mila had always been drawn to the strange and mysterious. The moment she arrived in Whitley, she felt a magnetic pull to the eerie, abandoned chapel where the couple first exchanged their vows. The air was thick with an inexplicable energy, buzzing like electricity, making her heart race. As she stepped inside, her breath hitched. Candles flickered, though there was no one there to light them, casting strange shadows that twisted and turned like living creatures. The faint scent of roses lingered as if their wedding day was frozen in time, and a love song, a melody she had never heard before, drifted through the air, wrapping around her like a dark embrace. She could almost feel their presence, their joy and sorrow echoing against the chapel walls. Curiosity tugged at her, pulling her deeper into the mystery. What really happened to the couple? Why did their love story remain untold? The townsfolk exchanged uneasy glances whenever she mentioned the couple's names, a silence sweeping over conversations like a cold wind. Something dark lingered in their eyes, as if they were afraid to unveil the secrets hidden in the past. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Mila's heart raced as she turned to leave the chapel. Just then, the candle flames flickered wildly, and for a fleeting moment, she swore she heard a laugh, a joyous, childlike sound tinged with sorrow. Goosebumps prickled her skin. Was it the spirits? Or just the wind? The echoes of the couple's love story tugged at her, compelling her to uncover the truth. What darkness had swallowed them whole? And what price would she have to pay to discover their secrets? Each step she took felt like she was walking deeper into a rabbit hole, where shadows whispered warnings, and the connection between life and death blurred. As she stood at the chapel gate, the moon peeked out from behind the clouds, illuminating an object glimmering on the ground. It was a locket, its intricate design familiar but hauntingly wrong, and at that moment, she knew there was no turning back. Mila knelt to pick up the locket, its cold metal sending a shiver through her fingers. Her heart raced as she pried it open, revealing two tiny portraits staring back at her, faces of the very couple she sought to understand. They looked so alive, yet their eyes seemed clouded by an eternal sadness. It was as if they were pleading with her, urging her to uncover the truth of their fate. With trembling hands, she closed the locket and stood up. The air grew electric, charged with a palpable intensity. She felt an oppressive weight on her chest, a warning, perhaps. Glaring shadows flickered hideously at the corners of her vision, pulling her deeper into the chapel's whispering heart. The melody that had enchanted her moments before now turned sinister, sharp notes slicing through the silence like stabs of ice. Mila's thoughts raced. She could either run away, abandoning the mystery and the ghosts of the past, or she could embrace it, pull on that thread dangling before her. What if the locket held the key to unlocking their story? Outside, the wind howled, echoing her rising panic. She stumbled back into the chapel with a newfound determination. She needed to know. She needed to find out what had befallen the couple on that fateful night. The flickering candles cast dance-like shadows on the walls, almost beckoning her to explore deeper into the recesses of the chapel. She moved cautiously toward the pulpit at the front. Torn pieces of fabric lay scattered on the floor, a scrap of lace, perhaps from the bride's gown. Her breath caught in her throat. With every step, she felt the air grow heavier, almost suffocating, pressing against her like a vice. As she reached the pulpit, the whispers intensified, a cacophony of long-buried emotions clawing to the surface. Heart pounding, she leaned forward, trying to discern words woven in the fabric of time. And then it hit her, a singular name, reverberating in the silence, echoing from the depths of the past. Elena. Mila staggered back, clutching her heart. A chill coursed down her spine as she recalled the name she had overheard the townsfolk murmur. Was this bride the key to unraveling everything? Just then, the chapel doors slammed shut behind her, leaving her engulfed in darkness. Her pulse raced, the sound of it thundering in her ears. She was not alone. The air shifted, swirling with a presence that was inexplicably familiar yet threatening. Mila's gaze darted around, searching the suffocating blackness. She felt them, two souls intertwined, watching her. Their essence was thick in the air, heavy with unfulfilled dreams and unspoken words. "Who are you?" she croaked, her voice barely breaking the suffocating silence. In response, the shadows coiled closer, weaving together, forming a figure, a woman, her face mirroring the portrait in the locket. "Elena," Mila whispered, and the figure nodded slowly, an ethereal sadness etched on her features. What followed sent Mila's heart into her throat. A soft, heart-wrenching melody filled the air. It was the same haunting tune she had heard earlier, but now it spoke of sorrow and loss, piercing her very soul. Suddenly, the vision flickered, and she saw it, a flash of light, a wedding day gone wrong, laughter turning to screams, a love song transforming into a dirge. Then everything fell silent again. Mila could almost hear her heart breaking. What powerful force had turned their love into such tragedy? The face faded before her eyes, leaving nothing but the echo of despair. And in that moment, the chapel trembled, the locket burning hot against her chest as if demanding something from her. Did it want her to break the cycle? To reveal the truth within the chains binding Elena and her lost love? There was no turning back now. As darkness encroached around, a single question lingered in the air: what lies in the shadows waiting to be unleashed? Mila's breath hung in the air as the figure of Elena began to dissolve back into shadows, leaving behind a weight of sorrow that pressed on her chest. The chapel felt alive, alive with grief and longing, and every heartbeat thrummed with energy. She could feel the locket's warmth pulsing against her skin, as if it was trying to share a hidden truth, a truth that now consumed her whole. She stepped back, her feet slipping slightly on the cold stone floor. The air crackled and thickened, turning stifling and electric, surrounding her like a tempest. All at once, the chapel's oppressive silence was shattered by the echo of soft sobs cascading from the corners, whispering memories long lost. "Why?" Mila's voice quivered as she searched the engulfing darkness, desperate for a sign, an answer. The shadows seized the candlelight around her, twisting it into grotesque shapes. Panic curled in her stomach. What had she walked into? Suddenly, a gust of icy wind swirled through the space, echoing the sorrowful melody again. This time, it felt like a call, beckoning her toward the altar. Facing her fears, she took a hesitant step forward. The candle flames danced wildly, providing just enough light to illuminate the pathway. She arrived at the altar, grotesque symbols etched deep into the wood. Running her fingers over them, she felt the tingling sensation of a connection, a history buried beneath the grief. From the corner of her eye, movement caught her attention. Mila turned quickly but saw only shadows retreating. They seemed to dart toward the chapel entrance, whispering fervently. Her heart thundered. She stepped closer to the entrance, drawn by a force she couldn't comprehend, her instincts screaming for her to flee or follow. With one last breath, she took the plunge. She rushed to the doors, gripping the handle tight. The wood felt warm beneath her touch. In moments of uncertainty, she found her resolve. There was something, a promise hidden in the tragedy, and she was determined to reveal it. The doors creaked open, and cool night air flooded in, mingling with the distant sound of the raging storm. Before her lay the path to the graveyard. Shadows flickered hungrily among the tombstones, and a low wind whispered names Mila had never heard. One step at a time, she ventured forward. The damp earth squelched beneath her feet as fat raindrops began to fall. Each droplet hammered against the ground, punctuating the air with sound, each strike an echo of despair. As she approached the first gravestone, her heart sank. The name carved into the stone sent chills rippling through her. It was Elena's last name. A jolt of realization split her world in two. This was no coincidence. She had unknowingly summoned not only the love buried in this cemetery but the pain that accompanied it. Without warning, the locket around her neck burned hotter still. Mila stumbled back, clutching it tightly as if it held all the answers. Blinking back tears, she turned towards the tree line, where a flickering light danced tantalizingly. She followed it, heart racing, her hands trembling. The closer she got, the more she felt an irresistible pull to confront whatever might await her. She could sense the stories brewing beneath the surface like unquiet spirits. "Reveal yourself," she shouted, her voice filled with fierce determination. The flicker responded, pulsing brighter, and a low murmur rose, intertwining with the wind. Then, a figure emerged from the shadows not far off. With an ethereal glow surrounding it, the figure lifted its gaze to Mila's, revealing a familiar face, one that looked eerily like the woman in the locket. "Why?" Mila gasped. But before she could finish, the figure transformed, twisting into a darker specter, the air thickening around her. "Don't you see?" it hissed, its voice like shards of glass scraping against her soul. "You're the key to uncovering the truth, but you may also be the one to seal it forever." A chill ran through her. In that pivotal moment, the night air felt charged with the promise of answers but threatened by unspeakable blight. Would she dare ask the questions her heart could scarcely handle? What untold horrors hovered just beyond the light? The storm raged on, but this was nothing compared to the tempest swirling within her. What secrets lay hidden in the shadows, waiting for her to dare uncover them? "Don't you see?" the figure continued, its voice now a shrill whisper lost in the torment of the wind. The air wrapped around Mila, thick and suffocating like a thick fog. She stepped back, completely torn between fear and an inexplicable desire to understand. "Who are you?" she stammered, her voice barely rising above the howl of the storm. The shadowy form hesitated, its outline flickering like a candle in the wind. For a moment, Mila thought she saw a glimmer of something soft, something familiar, an echo of warmth clinging to the cold darkness. This specter was the embodiment of grief, entwined with a need that pressed upon her fragile heart. "I was forgotten," it whispered, "abandoned among these stones. But you carry the key to remembrance." The truth of those words pierced through her like a lightning bolt. Each memory she repressed surged forth, drowning her in a flood of sorrow and longing. Before she could speak, the specter lunged forward, morphing into a swirling mass of shadows just shy of her reach. Mila gasped, stumbling backward, her pulse racing as shadows wrapped around her ankles like icy tendrils. She could feel the energy crackling in the air, urging her to break through her fear. The locket blazing against her chest felt like an anchor, grounding her as history collided with the present. "Mila!" the figure howled, its features now animated with a mix of anguish and desperation. "Only you can weave together the fragments that bind us. Seek the truth and set us free." The landscape around her shifted. Shadows began to pulse rhythmically, almost as if breathing. The echoing names from the graves wrapped around her, whispering, weaving a tapestry of stories interlaced with Elena's last name. "Find me." The voice transformed, softening, as if layered beneath the cries of the night. "Do not let our stories fade into oblivion." Mila's heart surged with a wild array of emotions. The storm's fury intensified, rain slamming against her like 1,000 tiny hammers. The darkness crackled with an energy she could almost taste. Her body was caught between flight and fight, but there was something hauntingly familiar in this specter. Instinctively, she grasped the locket, its heat amplifying, a guiding light through the oppressive shadows. "What do I need to do?" she shouted defiantly, her voice rising above the chaos, eyes narrowing on the specter who now appeared less of a threat and more of a plea. "Return to the chapel," it implored, growing translucent as the night folded around it. "There, the truth lies dormant. Speak to the spirits, release us before we become lost forever." There was a final, desperate flicker in its gaze before it dissipated into nothing more than mist, leaving Mila quivering and alone amidst the tumult. She stood frozen, thoughts racing, fighting to grasp each swirling thread of an unspoken legacy. Without hesitation, she turned toward the misty path back to the chapel. The conflict within her was fierce. This was no longer just about exploring the unknown. It was a call to duty, her own heart now a part of the woven fate, tied to this place, these stories, and this shadow that had come alive. The rain soaked her as she trudged back into the chaos of the storm, her mind racing along with her heart. What awaited in the chapel? What spectral truths would she uncover? Though fear burrowed deep, there was an urgency to learn, to connect the sorrow and strength that had entwined their lives. As the shadows of the chapel reappeared, the door creaked open with a hollow echo, inviting her back into the secrets that lay ahead. And just like that, she felt the weight of purpose resting heavily on her chest. With each step into the chapel, she couldn't escape it. Darkness bubbled with fresh uncertainty as she called out the names, longing for their stories to lift off the gravestones. What darker truths awaited her in the silence? Would she harness the power to bring their grief to light, or would secrets swallow her whole? The chapel loomed ahead, its tall spire piercing the tempestuous night sky. Cold rain lashed against Mila's face, but she pressed on, propelled by a force she couldn't quite define. As she entered, the door swung shut behind her with a heavy thud, sealing her inside this sanctuary of shadows. Inside, the air was stagnant, cloaked in a shroud of sorrow. Flickering candlelight illuminated the dust-laden pews, casting long, warped shadows that danced along the aged stone walls. The locket against her chest pulsed, a warm beating in the chill of the room, urging her forward into the heart of the chapel. Mila, the whisper echoed through the chamber, tugging at her desperately. Every fiber of her being screamed for connection, as if the very walls yearned to share their pain. "Who's there?" she called, clenching her fists. Her heart raced, a wild drum announcing her presence. Silence swallowed her words, wrapping around her like a cloak, yet the air crackled a lingering promise of revelation. With shaky steps, she approached the altar, the flickering flames casting haunting silhouettes. Her gaze fell upon a faded tapestry, its threads fraying with age, depicting a family reverently holding hands. Names she recognized were stitched into the fabric, each one wrapping around her heart like chains. She moved closer, fingers trembling as they traced the patterns. She felt their stories pulse beneath her fingertips, alive and pleading. "Tell me," she whispered, barely able to breathe. "What do you want me to know?" The air trembled. A surge of cold rushed past her like an unwelcome breath, and as if on cue, the candles flickered violently before extinguishing, plunging her into darkness. Panic gripped her, squeezing her chest, narrowing her vision. "Mila." A disembodied voice erupted from the shadows, sharp and urgent. She spun around, heart hammering against her ribs as a figure emerged, a woman, cloaked in mist, eyes wide with desperation. She appeared for just an instant, agony etched on her face. "You must remember, you must find us." "Wait!" Mila cried, lunging forward, but the apparition vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving only an echo of despair behind. Pulsing energy rose from the ground, and without thinking, Mila fell to her knees. "I want to help," she shouted into the abyss, her voice raw with emotion. "Tell me what happened. I won't let you drift away. I swear it." Almost instantly, a cold breeze swept through the room, and the tapestry fluttered, revealing a hidden compartment behind it. Heart racing, Mila reached into the darkness and pulled out a small wooden box, delicate yet heavy with significance. She could sense that something vital lay within. As she opened the box, the air around her thickened. Inside flooded sunlight and warmth, shimmering against the darkness of her surroundings, an ornate key, entwined in a strong, glowing thread. It was beautiful yet haunting, shimmering with a promise of unlocking the past. "What is this?" she whispered, instinctively wrapping her fingers around the cool metal. A jolt coursed through her, igniting memories that had long lain dormant. Faces of those she once loved flashed before her eyes. The weight of loss crashed over her like a tidal wave, yet there was also warmth, a connection that transcended time. "Mila, remember." The voice urged again, echoing like a distant thunder, pushing her toward the key's purpose. Gripping it tightly, she felt an awakening, as if she were finally looking through a fractured lens. The name Elena screamed for recognition, layered beneath her memories, demanding to be acknowledged. The storm outside raged louder, but inside the chapel, a tense silence expanded. Remembering deep in her heart, she understood it wasn't just about the past, it was intertwined with the future, and a storm was brewing within her. Suddenly, the ground trembled as the shadows twisted around the altar, swirling like a whoosh of wind. "Use it. Unlock the truth." The voice pressed, stronger now. Mila stood, the key glistening like a beacon in her palm. But where would it lead her? What dark history would she unveil? With a steady breath, Mila stepped closer to the altar, an electric anticipation crackling between her and the darkness. Could she finally unravel the secrets that lay dormant in this haunting chapel? Or would the shadows reclaim her before she could wield the key's power? The moment her foot crossed the threshold of the altar, the shadows leaped forward, swirling around her like a cyclone of forgotten memories. The key in her hand felt heavier, infused with urgency as she stood before the great stone surface, which seemed to pulsate under her gaze. "Mila." The voice was now a shriek, echoing through the void, blending with the relentless thunder outside. There was no turning back. Her heartbeat thundered alongside the storm, urging her on. She raised the key, its intricacies sparkling in the dim light. "Unlock the truth." The voice demanded again, a desperate plea wrapped in haunting despair. Mila took a deep breath, her throat tightening as she stepped closer. Each pulse of the key resonated with the ache in her chest, a connection she could no longer ignore. She felt the weight of generations pressing down on her, like a boulder poised to fall. She had to know. "Where do I use it?" she murmured, eyeing the altar's secure edges that held centuries of secrets. She scanned the wood, searching for a lock, something that would guide her through this labyrinth of grief. The oppressive silence was disorienting, and she chased away the shivers crawling along her spine. Without warning, the ground quaked beneath her, sending vibrations shuddering up to her heart. It was as if the chapel were awakening, unleashing a sigh that shook her core. The altar began to tremble, and she noticed an intricate carving, a keyhole that seemed to shimmer just out of reach. That was it. Her breath quickened as she stepped forward. She slid the key into the lock. The sound of grinding stone filled the air as the ground quaked again, a fierce wind swirling around her. With a swift twist, the altar responded. It creaked and groaned before shifting, revealing a dark passageway that led deep into the bowels of the chapel. A chill swept through her, and doubt clawed at her mind. What if something terrible lies ahead? Fear seeped in, twisting her gut. But the memories of Elena flashed in her mind, her laughter, her warmth, their last words. The urgency to find her wrapped around Mila like a vine, and she couldn't let fear dictate her steps. So she ventured into the darkness, the passage steeped in shadows that swallowed the last remnants of candlelight. The further she walked, the more she sensed the spirits of her ancestors entwined in the walls, reaching out with ghostly hands. The air grew colder, and the sense of isolation thickened around her, making it hard to breathe. Mila, the voice now sounded clearer, haunting, leading her deeper still. "You must remember, before it consumes you." Every step felt like a gamble. The silence, punctuated only by the echo of her footfalls, draped her in an eerie stillness. Images of her family danced in her mind, faces she had pushed away, memories she had buried. The feeling of loss surged and receded with every thought. Suddenly, the corridor opened up into a dimly lit chamber, filled with strange artifacts that whispered secrets of the past. An intricate mural adorned one wall, depicting an ancient ceremony, a gathering of spirits. Among them, she spotted a familiar figure, the sorrow of a woman frozen in time. Elena. Mila's voice was a breathless whisper, the name slipping from her trembling lips as she stepped closer to the mural, but before she could reach out, shadows stormed the edges of the room, spiraling and converging on her silhouette. "Stop. You're too close." The voice broke through the chaos, but it barely registered. Mila was locked in a trance, drawn towards something shimmering at the floor. She knelt, ignoring the darkness swirling around her, and let her fingers caress the base of the mural. A cold pulse radiated from her touch, igniting something inside her. Suddenly, the world spun. The room warped and twisted, blurring reality. There, link after link unfurled before her, a haunting history playing out like a movie before her eyes. Betrayal, grief, and should she dare hope, a sliver of redemption danced through the air. What she learned would change everything. As visions of the past flashed before her, Mila felt the key's power surge through her, igniting a fire she hadn't known was in her. But then a scream pierced the air, slicing through the illusions, bringing her back to the present. The darkness shifted, promising that the secrets she yearned to uncover wouldn't lie dormant for long. Mila's breath caught. Who had screamed? What awaited her next? With unease prickling at her back, she stood up, determined to face whatever emerged from the shadows. The truth was near, and it beckoned her forward. But what would the truth reveal? Would it be her salvation, or her damnation? The scream echoed like an alarm bell in the stillness, shattering the heavy air around Mila. She spun around, heart racing, the shadows looming behind her thickening as if they were alive, hungry for her to yield to fear. "Mila." That desperate voice broke through the darkness again, a frenzied plea tinged with urgency. It echoed from the passageway, urging her to remember what was at stake. A chill coursed through her veins, mixing with determination. She couldn't let fear hold her captive now. Nothing around her felt right. The artifacts seemed to whisper, but she couldn't make out the words, only the timbre of anguish in the air. Her eyes darted to the mural, the woman's sorrow-filled image resonating deep within her, a painful familiarity that mirrored her own conflicts. Suddenly, the ground shook again, and something rose from the shadows, solid and forbidding. Mila's breath quickened as she braced herself, unsure whether to fight or flee. A silhouette materialized, flickering like a dying flame, its features obscured by the swirling darkness. "Mila, you have to choose," the voice urged, resonating this time with unmistakable clarity. It was Elena. She felt the weight of many lives intertwining with her own, ancient fibers woven into the very air she breathed. The shadows pulsated around her as if they sensed the rising tension within the chamber. "What do I have to choose?" Mila cried out, desperation tightening her throat. "What does any of this mean?" The darkness began to swirl violently, and with each tremor, grainy fragments of truth started to chip away at the fabric of her understanding. She saw flickers of a past she barely knew, rituals enacted in the depths of nights much like this, secrets clasping hands, binding families in tormented love. "Mila, they will consume you if you let them," Elena's voice distorted, reverberating through the walls like a lost melody. "Remember who you are. Remember us." The shadows roared in response, blustering like an angry storm, threatening to engulf her entirely. Mila's breathing quickened as she fought the panic crashing in like tumultuous waves. "No. You won't take me," she shouted defiantly, flinging her arms out as if to push back the darkness. Suddenly, a light flickered amidst the chaos, small but radiant. It brightened as she focused on it, the warmth wrapping around her like a protective shield. In that moment, clarity washed over her. She could see now the connection between the luminescence and the key she held. "Unlock the truth," she murmured, a mantra repeating in her mind, the fragments aligning like stars in a vast, dark sky. With her gaze now locked on the shimmering light, her fingers grasped the key tighter. "What do you want me to see?" she demanded, her voice steady and full of conviction as she took a step forward, channeling her fear into courage. The ground trembled one last time, and the shadows rolled back, revealing a hidden portal that pulsated in rhythm with the heartbeat of the earth itself. Every instinct in her screamed to flee, but she couldn't turn away. With a deep breath, she approached. The moment her hand brushed against the surface, a wave of images flooded her vision, blinding, vibrant, terrifying. The air around her sizzled with energy, and she felt herself being pulled into its depths, the truth swirling around her like a cyclone of raw emotion. "Do not let go," Elena whispered faintly amidst the chaos, fading in and out of the storm. Just as the world began to unravel, the light edged closer, grasping at her very essence. Mila felt herself teetering on the brink of something monumental, but then a sudden crash echoed from behind her, scattering the visions like ashes in the wind. "What was that?" she shouted, her heart racing with panic. In that single shattering moment, the answers she sought felt further away than ever, and she realized that whatever lay ahead could hold catastrophic consequences. Rushing forward, she braced herself, staring into the light that was both a beacon and a peril. Would she uncover the redemption she so desperately sought, or would this journey shatter her forever? With darkness behind and the shimmering truth ahead, Mila stepped forward into the unknown, and the echoes of the past began to echo louder. What would she find at the edge of this precipice? Was her courage about to yield the truth, or was a new terror waiting just beyond the light? The light enveloped Mila, swirling around her like a gentle caress, yet within it, she sensed a tempest brewing. Her heart pounded, and the key in her hand thrummed, resonating with the energy flooding her senses. Around her, the chaos stilled as she crossed the threshold. The portal swallowed her, and in an instant, she was seized by an overwhelming rush of images and memories, their jagged edges cutting through her soul like shards of glass. Mila stumbled, trying to regain her footing. What is happening? The vision shifted, landscapes dissolving into one another. She saw a grand hall filled with people dressed in ethereal garments, their faces marked with both joy and longing. In the center stood a woman, her features eerily reminiscent of the mural, eyes bright with hope yet clouded with an unspeakable sorrow. "Is that?" Mila hesitated, a lump forming in her throat. "Is that me?" The figures laughed and danced, their happiness twisting like a knife in her heart. The scene blurred, memories fraying, faces warped into anguished expressions, the laughter morphing into cries. Darkness crept in, swallowing the light, as shadows wrapped around the joyous figures, pulling them into an abyss. Elena's voice echoed through the void. "You must see the truth. You're not just a witness, you're a part of this story." Fiery tendrils of light flared in response as her heart ached with the weight of it all. The faces surged back, and through the tide of sorrow, one name cut through, sharp and direct: Daniel. Memory cascaded. She saw him, his warm smile, the warmth of their shared moments, the reckless abandon they felt together. The image shifted to their final encounter, the argument that split them, shadows creeping between them as words turned bitter. "No!" Mila shouted, the pain becoming unbearable. "Not that!" The vision stretched and contorted, pulling her deeper into an unraveling tapestry of love and loss. She gasped as the image of Daniel shifted into that of a towering figure cloaked in darkness, his face twisted in rage. "You were supposed to save him." A surge of cold flooded her, wrapping around her limbs. "What do you mean?" Mila screamed, tears streaming down her cheeks. I tried. But every effort, every intention felt counterfeit in the face of this tidal wave of revelation. Memories flooded her thoughts in rhythmic succession, each revealing how her choices had intertwined with an ancient curse, a cycle repeating, an unending loop of pain and sacrifice. "Choose." Elena's voice rang through the kaleidoscope of images, fierce and clear. "Choose to break it." Caught between pain and longing, confusion and awakening, Mila felt herself drawn into an impossible decision. She needed to act, but how? Suddenly, her eyes were drawn back to the key in her hand, glimmering even amid the chaos. It pulsed with life. The light it emitted seemed to ascend, illuminating her path forward. "Unlock the chains binding these souls," she whispered, hope igniting in her chest. "I can save them." Just as resolution settled in her heart, the sky above darkened once more, an ominous shadow lurking at the edges of her vision. The air thickened, a warning, a promise of dread yet to come, as the echoes of despair crescendoed into a deafening roar. Mila tightened her grip on the key, determination flooding her veins. "I will break this cycle," she declared, each word emboldening her spirit, but within the storm, a dark presence stirred. Following closely behind was a realization that choices alone wouldn't be enough. She had to confront demons both within and without. With every ounce of courage, she lunged into the light, only to feel the icy fingers of despair latching onto her, pulling her into the depths of what she feared most. "Mila. No." The scream shattered the tension, reverberating through the chaos, a haunting echo of both love and dread. As her heart raced, time stretched. The choice loomed, shining brighter than anything she had ever faced. What world awaited her on the other side? Would she succumb to the darkness or emerge victorious, reclaiming not only her love but herself? With the shadows closing in, she prepared for battle, unsure of the cost but resolute this fight was just beginning. What awaited when the light erupted into the unknown? Would the truth finally set her free, or would it plunge her deeper into despair? As Mila surged forward into the blinding light, a visceral sensation struck her, pushing her back against an unseen force. It felt like being drawn into a whirlpool, her limbs flailing helplessly. Panic gripped her, tightening its icy fingers around her throat. She couldn't breathe. Then, in an explosive burst, the brightness shattered into a cascade of colors, and she was thrown onto cold, hard ground. Pain shot up her spine as she landed, gasping for air. She blinked rapidly, trying to clear her vision. Slowly, the world came into focus, revealing a vast expanse of night sky, punctuated by stars that twinkled like pinpricks in black velvet. Mila's body felt heavy, as if weighted down by unseen chains. Around her lay remnants of the grand hall, remnants dulled by grief. A soft whimper penetrated the silence. She turned, and her heart lurched. A figure knelt on the ground, their shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "Elena." Mila rushed forward, extending a trembling hand. "What happened?" Elena lifted her tear-streaked face, her eyes hollow with despair. "You shouldn't have come here, Mila. The darkness, it's stronger than we ever imagined." She pointed toward the horizon where shadows writhed and danced, coiling like serpents eager to wrap themselves around their prey. Mila stumbled back, fear mingling with resolve. "I can't just stand by and let this happen. I have to fight." She brandished the key, its light flickering in the murky gloom. The moment her fingers curled around the metallic object, something shifted in the air. The shadows lurked closer, whispering her name, hissing harsh truths that choked her heart. "You'll never escape the choices you've made," they taunted, their voices echoing like a haunting melody. "No," Mila shouted, a fierce anger burning in her chest. "I can change this. I have to believe that." But her conviction wavered as the darkness encroached, a tidal wave ready to drown her hope. Suddenly, from the depths of the shadows emerged a figure, tall, ominous, clad in a cloak that billowed like smoke. Mila's stomach twisted. It was him, the embodiment of her fears, the rage that had consumed their love. "You were supposed to save him," it growled, its voice a guttural rumble that vibrated through her bones. Daniel, the name clawed its way out, breaking her spirit further. The darkness seemed to thicken, reacting to her pain, swirling with glee. "You've come to face me, little girl?" The figure stepped closer, an eerie smile spreading across its face. "Do you truly believe you can defy fate?" Mila swallowed hard. "But what if I choose differently? What if I unlock my past instead of letting it lock me out?" As the words left her lips, the key in her hand pulsed fiercely, sending a shockwave of light that pushed back against the shadows, illuminating the stark contrast of despair and hope. Elena turned, her eyes wide with realization. "Mila, the truth can be weaponized. The light can consume them, but you must wield it wisely." Mila nodded, breathing deeply. She felt the weight of every decision, every love lost surging through her. The truth was bitter, yet it shimmered like fresh dew on a spring morning. I won't let this cycle continue. She yelled, gripping the key tighter. Before she could fully understand her purpose, the figure lunged, dark tendrils snaking towards her, hungry for fear. A surge of light exploded from the key, pushing the darkness away, but she knew it wasn't enough. She had to choose, to open the ancient lock within her heart. What's going to happen? Elena shouted, her voice drowned in the chaos as shadows clawed at Mila, seeking to envelop her in despair once more. I have to find a way. Milo's eyes narrowed with determination. I have to face this. Not just for me, but for everyone. As she steeled herself, the darkness hissed, becoming a whirlwind of rage. The stakes climbed higher, and a deafening silence fell before the storm broke, tears of light and darkness colliding. But what if this choice spiraled into an unspeakable horror? The answer loomed like a storm on the horizon. Would she conquer her demons, or would they consume her entirely? Mila stood at the edge of the abyss, the darkness swirling like a tempest, trying to draw her in. The voice of Elena echoed in her mind, you must remember. Remember what? The weight of choice pressed against her chest, and with every heartbeat, she felt the yearning of lost souls who had once danced in the light. Stop! She shouted, clenching the key in her palm. You don't control me. The shadows recoiled, momentarily surprised at her defiance. Mila could feel a flicker of hope, a final stand against the anguish trying to consume her. She took a step forward, determined not just to confront the darkness but to understand it. What do you want from me? Her voice trembled, but it was laced with strength. The ominous figure inched forward, its presence suffocating, its voice dripped with malice. You're nothing without your heartache. Choose despair, and I'll grant you eternal peace. Fear twisted her insides, but she straightened her back. No. I choose to remember. She cried, thrusting the key above her head. Light burst forth, cascading around her in brilliant waves. It pushed against the shadows, reaching for every corner of the darkness. Her memories surged, ripping through the fabric of her heart, the laughter shared with Daniel, the warmth of his embrace, the pain of their parting. Echoes of their love materialized, intertwining with Elena's ghostly presence. We're all intertwined, Mila whispered, realizing they had been waiting for her to make this connection. A powerful wave of light enveloped her, reacting with every fragment of her being. Memories of joy burned away the shadows, and images of love broke the chains that had bound their spirits. I forgive you, she said, weaving her consciousness with the past and throwing it toward the figure racing out of control. The figure howled a sound of anguish, morphing into something almost human but layered in rage. You think love can conquer me? It shrieked, unraveling. You're just a whisper among the howling storm. The light pulsed, stronger. But love has the power to heal. Mila proclaimed, her voice steady as an arrow flying straight to its target. I won't let our story fade into nothing. I'll carry it with me. Finally, she hurled the key into the darkness. It flew with grace, glimmering as it cut through the chaos, landing squarely in the center of the shadowy figure. A flash erupted, exploding in a magnificent spiral of light. The darkness writhed in agony, breaking apart like fragile glass, as if every shred of pain fused with light. Mila watched in awe as the past began to unravel, dispelling the shadows that had held them captive for so long. The spirits of Elena, Daniel, and countless others danced amidst the brilliant light, swirling together in a crowning moment of freedom. Mila breathed, feeling their joy wrap around her like a warm embrace, a vibrant reminder that love never truly dies. You're free, she murmured, her heart swelling as the scene around her unfurled into vivid colors. The once muted portraits of the couple now glowed with a radiant tenderness, their laughter echoing through the night like a soft lullaby. As the shadows faded into nothingness, a sense of calm washed over Mila. The once burdened chapel stood alive around her, light cascading through the cracks in stone, the dust motes dancing in unison with the spirits celebrating their reunion. Mila, came Elena's gentle voice, now no longer bound by sadness. She floated towards her, the depth of gratitude glowing in her eyes. You have gifted us a path to peace. Mila smiled, her heart swelling. No, you gave me the courage to remember. As the final remnants of the storm dissipated, the air grew light, and the whispers of the past faded away like morning mist. Mila turned away from the chapel, no longer feeling the pull of sorrow but rather the strength of her own story. Outside, dawn broke, painting the sky with hues of lavender and rose. The town of Whitley lay before her, quiet and serene, the curse lifted, the haunting melody of love transformed into a new song, a celebration of life and connection that would ripple through the town for generations to come. With every step away from the chapel, Mila felt a sense of purpose she'd never known. She would share their story and honor their love. And as the sun broke through the horizon, she knew she was not just a survivor, she was a keeper of memories, weaving together the tapestry of lives intertwined by destiny. Before she stepped into her new chapter, a final thought lingered. Elena's ghostly smile whispered in her heart. Tell our story, Mila. Love conquers all. Mila nodded, the weight of her promise settling comfortably on her shoulders. It was time to live, and now, this is where you come in. Subscribe immediately to this channel so you don't miss out on the next amazing story. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Did you love the ending? Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this incredible conclusion. Only true fans know the real importance of supporting the channel through these actions.